If you've ever wondered how huge creators, global brands, and entire media empires scale fast and actually make money, you're about to get the answers from one of the people who architects it behind the scenes. Leslie is not just dropping theory. She's revealing and teaching us how to think, build, negotiate, and protect yourself as you grow. We get into content strategy, career pivots, money decisions, boundaries, confidence, the creator economy, and the truth about what it really takes to build something that lasts. This episode is going to change the way you run your business and the way that you see your path. Let's get into it. Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Brilliance Method. Today, we are hanging out with someone I love, I look up to. She is such a close friend, a mentor, a colleague. And I'm so happy that you're going to get to know the real her today, because you might have looked at her LinkedIn and some of her other things where she creates incredible content and is such a wealth of knowledge. Leslie builds the infrastructure behind today's most influential creators, IP, and media ventures, turning creative chaos into scalable, monetizable ecosystems. And with 16 years of experience at the intersection of media, technology, and culture, Leslie is the founder of Every Problem Solved, a consultancy focused on content strategy, operations, format development, and growth for digital-first businesses. She partners with creators, Fortune 500 brands, and media companies to develop high-impact content, drive operational clarity, and scale revenue across platforms. Most recently, she served as head of digital for Mo Williams' Hidden Pigeon Company, a joint venture with Stampede Ventures and Redbird Capital. And in less than a year, she launched all social channels from scratch, grew YouTube to 150,000 subscribers and 8.5 million views, and opened monetization on YouTube and Facebook, modernizing one of the most iconic children's IPs for a new generation. As a consultant, Leslie has worked with top-tier clients, including Hank and John Green's Complexly as the interim COO, Spy Ninja Network, doubled team size, and she scaled 6 YouTube channels, holy shit, Light Tricks, through Facetune and Videoleap, The Chosen and Canvas Media Studios, advising across strategy, operations, and monetization. Leslie produced the 1 Billion Followers Summit in Dubai, a first of its kind global event funded by the UAE government. She programmed over 40 sessions, worked with 100 creators, and delivered a flawless 3-day experience for 15,000 attendees, showcasing her ability to lead complex, high visibility events that merge culture, tech, and influence. She serves on the VidCon advisory board, hosted VidCon's main stage in 2023, and is a frequent contributor to Ad Age and Digiday, offering insights on creator-led innovation and the future of digital media. Her edge, Leslie brings structure to creative ambition and builds media that lasts. Whether growing IP, launching brands, or scaling creator businesses, she operates at the intersection of vision and execution. And she lives in Long Beach, California with her husband and her daughter, who I love so much. Hello, my brilliant, beautiful friend. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Elysia. This is awesome. Wow, it's crazy to hear back all the things.
All the things, so many things. And I have had the privilege of being a witness to so many of those things over the years. And for everyone listening and watching, Leslie and I are super close, and we met in 2012. And before we get into so much of your magic and what you have to offer today, including some very helpful things that people can take away with if they're looking for an expansion of their creator career, or we can even talk more about branded content and what that actually means nowadays, because it means something very different than it did when I started in 2006, around the same time you started. But I wanted to acknowledge you, Leslie, and also mention something that you wouldn't have said in your bio, which is you're not only a great colleague, you're a great boss. And
Oh,
yeah, like you were my boss. I mean, we had like another boss who had another boss and all that, but you're great to work with. And over the years, as we've had like so many, very confidential sisterly conversations and all the different organizations we've worked in and things that I've been through and you've been through, one thing that always stood out to me is how you treat the people who are coming up under you, and like how you're such a lighthouse for people to find their way and to go in a direction that is meaningful for them, instead of just creating meaningless content just to make money for big brands. Like, that's not what you do. And thank you.
that's so kind. Thank you. I mean, hearing that, kind of what it brings to mind is I never want to keep somebody in a box. Like, I don't know, because I wouldn't want that for me. I talked about this a little bit on a post recently where I was like, some people will always see you as you've always been, and they're not willing to see beyond what they know about you. And for me, I think it was always really important for anybody that I hire or work with that I give them opportunities. I see if there's something else that they want to do, let them try that, let them build their skill set. And ultimately, like if it's no longer a fit, like go off and do your thing and I will support that. And I think it's why I've been able to maybe maintain relationships as long as I have. You and I are a really good example of that because I'm like, go fly. Like don't stay here in this box that you feel like is containing you. Because I wouldn't want that for myself.
It can be challenging when we need a team. We rely on our team to help us get shit done. But you're always mentoring them, the ones who want to be mentored, who ask for it, who are open to it, right? That like not everyone's going to stay as long as you might stay or be a part of it. And I think that's what makes really great leadership is knowing that not everyone wants to be the boss at this company. And also not everyone wants to stay where they're at, and navigating that, getting your job done and nurturing people to be the best that they can possibly be, even if it means with someone else.
Yeah. Like letting them go. Like I think that's the biggest factor.
One of the reasons I brought that up is I was remembering back to the day that I met you. And we were working, well, I hadn't yet worked, but you were working for Michelle Phan before it was Icon, and it was called Phan. And it was during the Google initiative, which some people may or may not remember, but essentially Google was giving some of their top creators million, $2 million-ish to create a certain amount of hours of content. So Michelle Phan was part of this initiative and she built a team. You were on that team. Think you guys had done a travel show by the time I came in, and you were looking for another supervising producer to help with that. And when I saw the post for it and I saw, okay, who is Michelle Phan? And it's so crazy that I didn't know who she was, but I wasn't into makeup tutorials so much. So at the time, wound up producing 100. Leslie, how many hours have we watched people put makeup on?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, total hours of programming that we were responsible for was like 80 hours of programming, but like that doesn't, I mean, that's just once it's baked, right? Obviously there's the other 100+ additional hours of footage that's just like not ever used and is like in the can.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
And then
a lot of hours.
you had connected me to Equal, which then became part of VaynerMedia through Gary Vaynerchuk's company, which was very cool to work there. And I was on the L'Oreal campaigns, so I was doing even more makeup tutorials there. It's insane, right? And so, okay, so backing up, here I was, this as Tom Felicia once called me, goth light, which you kind of get the vibe. And I was like, makeup. No one ever taught me how to put on makeup, right? Like our moms didn't do that. So I don't even know if you know this, before I came to the interview, I went to, I don't know if it was MAC or just Ulta or Sephora or something. I don't even know if Ulta was around. It might have been Sephora, but I went in and I was like, what can you teach me about? And I asked about things I didn't know about. I was like, highlighter, bronzer. Like I watched a couple of videos from Michelle Phan. I was like, I don't even know what these words are, right? I hadn't yet fallen in love with RuPaul's Drag Race. That would have helped so much had I. But I was like, what is highlighter? What is bronzer? What is this? What is this? And I even watched one of her tutorials, I think with Bethany, where she did like this waterfall braid, right? So I came in wearing highlighter with a waterfall braid. I was like, I got ready for this because, with like having acting backgrounds, we get ready for the audition, even if it's a job interview. I actually think that skill helps us get jobs. What do you think?
I mean, well, it's so interesting that you say all this because I knew piss all about me. I mean, clearly I don't wear makeup. Like I really when I was younger, I did a little bit, like some eyeliner, maybe a little bit of blush or something or lip balm. And I had to learn on the job. I remember like somebody used the term cut crease. I had no idea what that was. And I had to figure out what it was, so I don't disagree with you, but yet I don't apply that to myself.
Yeah.
Like there was I think it was Cody Sanchez recently was like, the number one thing women need to do to make more money is wear makeup. And I just kind of laughed because I was
What?
like, that doesn't really,
What?
I don't feel like that applies. Maybe it applies to me.
No.
Maybe I could be doubling what I'm earning, but like, I don't know, especially post pandemic, I've just been like skincare, no makeup. But yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I think it's so funny that you did that. And then I think the irony to me is like you interviewed with me who could give a crap about makeup and probably didn't
Oh.
realize all the effort you put in. But that's amazing that you did that.
That's so funny. Yeah. I know. And what I meant by the acting thing is that, like, the idea of preparing for an audition, regardless of the makeup, right? Preparing for an audition has given me so many people skills in just like, okay, now I've shown up to get this job and like look the part and learn the thing and study. And it's like, even to the point of, you would think you would go to the company's website and look at their mission statement and get to know them and look up who works there. And in being in a position of hiring, a lot of people didn't do that, don't do that. They show up like, oh yeah, you guys do videos. I can do videos. It's like, do you even know who we are? Right. Two amazing things happened that day. So one, when I showed up and I met with Michelle, she said nothing, literally zero words. And I was so impressed. She stood across from me and just looked me in the eye and was quiet for what felt like 10 years. Maybe it was 30 seconds or a minute. And then she walked away. And I think she said, nice to meet you. Right. And I looked over at Wendy, who was her assistant at the time. And I was like, is that it? She's like, well, yeah, you can go talk to Leslie. And I was like, okay. And what I realized she was doing was it was like a vibe check. That's all it was. Right. And I was like, that's genius. She just allowed herself to be present in the moment to feel my energy. And I thought that was really cool. And then I got over to your desk and I was like, oh my God, you're amazing. I can relax. And you were asking me jobby questions, right? Like, here's this thing we're working on and here's this vertical. And like, what's your opinion? What do you think? And da da da. And I immediately started generating ideas. And this was so generous of you, Leslie. You said, hey, don't tell me that stuff yet. Wait until you're hired. Don't give me ideas for free. And I was like, thank you. Thank you very much. And it was definitely a learning curve for me that like, oh, I don't have to like overgive or prove myself when I'm with the right people.
Yeah, I mean, I do that sometimes. Like I remember later on, this is way past Michelle days. I interviewed for a company and they were just like drilling me, drilling me, drilling me. And I was just like, I'm not going to give you this. Like you're literally trying to extract valuable information from me. And I was like, and I knew in that moment, I was like, I cannot work here. This is icky. And again, sometimes I will. Like sometimes I'll be in the moment and like I think I overshared even today on a conversation because they were looking for somebody to do strategy for them. And I was like, so here's the thing. Why are you even doing this? Like what are your goals? And I just kept like asking all these questions. And like the reality is like you probably need to just hire me so that I can dig into even your why. But like sometimes I'm like, look, I just don't want to waste anybody's time because if you don't have these things lined up for yourself, not only is that not going to benefit me, but it's not going to benefit you either. So I think for you coming into it, or anybody coming into it, somebody's going to just like put all their ideas, like their brain and their IP on the table. I should be paying you for that. You should be paying me for that. And again, like sometimes I don't always take that advice, right? I think that happens sometimes where you give somebody advice and then they're like, oh, I should probably take that. I'm just in a space right now where I'm just like, I will never give like a format idea, right? If I've thought about like, this is when I say that, like the piece of content you should do or how to go about that, but I will dig into like why you're doing something or like, what are your goals? And do you even know what that goal is? Cause I also want to see if it's a waste of my time. Cause if you don't have that answer, I'm just going to spin my wheels because I don't know what success is going to look like for you. So yeah, I just remember your energy. You were just so positive and just like you had it together and like you knew what you're talking about. And I don't know if we even interviewed that many people, Elysia. Like I had just looked through so many horrible resumes where I was just like, ugh. And like I saw like you had done digital. And at that time, like, in like 12, like who had been doing that really? Not a lot of people. And so I was just so impressed by kind of what you were bringing to the table that I was just like, nah, like I don't need to know that stuff. I just need to understand how you work and if it's going to fit into how everybody's working here, you know?
Yeah, that's so generous. Everything that you just shared, truly, right? And that's what you are, Leslie. Like you protect people. And that's why people should hire you and work with you because you'll protect them, you'll protect their ideas, you'll protect their brands. And you do it on a personal level too. You know, you look out for people's families and well-being and like, are you taking care of yourself? And it's just so refreshing. And, I feel like we've had so many conversations about that kind of stuff. Like people don't take care of themselves in this industry and people are abused in this industry. And, one thing I love about your content for everyone listening and watching, go follow Leslie on LinkedIn and her link will be in the podcast description because you share not just from your heart, but you are not afraid to tell the truth and be a little polarizing. And I know you're not doing it to stir shit up necessarily, unless it's about like maternity leave and you're trying to make a change or like some positive impact here. But you're doing it to be helpful, truly. And when people are trying to like freebie chase and book, time with you just to get ideas, like before you do that, just go spend an hour on Leslie's LinkedIn and read her articles and her thoughts and her ideas. And you will know who she is. And you're just a remarkable human being. So I love
Oh,
you. And I'm gonna
thank
I'm
you.
gonna keep gushing on you over the next hour. So I hope you can
Uh-oh. I'll
handle
try. I'm not used to that. I mean, it's so interesting because it wasn't until probably about a year ago, maybe a little, about a year ago now, that I really kind of started to put myself out there in that way. Like I would do speaking stuff or like here and there or whatever, but nothing major. And I don't know, I just felt like I had to own my narrative. I had to own this space. I've been working here I've been working in digital for a long time, right? It's actually closer now to 17 years. And I'm like, I have a lot to contribute and I have a lot to say. And I think for so long, I was hesitant to do that, partly because I had to be careful, especially with certain places I worked, or, even now, places that I worked maybe a year ago, I'm, under certain like obligations not to say anything. But then I was kind of like, I can spin this. I
it.
can use examples without saying exactly who it is. And like some companies now, I'm not under NDA anymore, so I don't care. Like I'm going to say like the reality of like what happened and what it was within certain boundaries, because I think there's certain things that I probably won't still talk about unless it's like a private conversation because it's kind of like nobody's business
Right.
from a broader stand. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's so important for people if they have something to say. I've said this before, like you have a voice, use it, especially today. I mean, in this time and age of like, I think things getting shut down. And it was a really eye-opening experience too, working in Dubai, like beautiful country, like absolutely just opulent, stellar. But I felt extra guarded a little bit. Just, I'm in a foreign country. I don't know. I want to be very respectful. And there was a moment I kind of made this realization of like, oh, well, not that's not a bad thing, but like their rules are not rules that I would follow in the US, right? It's not like they have free speech or whatever. Like there's certain things certain guardrails that they have in that country. And so I was just like extra cautious and like it was the first time couldn't I felt like I couldn't say exactly what was on my mind at any given time.
Mm.
And also, again, I'm trying to be respectful. I'm in a foreign country. Like, I don't want to piss somebody off and say something that ultimately would not respect their culture and who they are. And,
Of course.
I come back to the US and I feel like so many people are feeling maybe the same thing. And I'm in a fight against that. And I don't know, maybe this is a flaw, a fatal flaw, but I think if somebody tells me no, or somebody, says something that is just not accurate, I have this like gut, like thing that like rises in me to correct it and to make it right. And I think that goes back to what you're saying in terms of, me wanting to help people. Like I live and die by my integrity. And that's the most important thing, that and honesty, and truthfulness as far as I know, right? Like, I make mistakes, I'm human, but those are like the biggest things that are, I think, critical to who I am as a human. And so ultimately, I do want to help people. I do want to connect with people because I believe in karma and I believe that things come back, right? And so ultimately, all the things that I've done is about how can I make the right connections for people to help them. Like why wouldn't I do that? I think that's just going to benefit everybody.
That's right. Yeah. And good point, right? So, as we operate in this world, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, be the best version of you and go with integrity because it really eats us alive inside when we have to close our mouth and our eyes to things that aren't right. And it happens a lot in every industry and especially in the entertainment industry, which is changing so much right now and so fast. And, with the age of AI where we are, it's just going to keep changing. And creators and crew are scrambling to create work, find work, race against this content building machine that is AI. And, now we have AI twins. Is that even the person who's teaching the thing? And, we can leverage some of that stuff. But when it's not even our own voice, I think there's a danger there. So ultimately, what it comes down to, and I went to this AI ethics workshop at the Marketing for AI conference in Cleveland. And one of the things that they were talking about is just is ethics and integrity. And if you are the best version of you and you continue to be, and you're not here to screw anyone over or cheat anyone or hurt people, like you will work. You will. People will still hire you. And sure, like a lot of the more or less mechanical jobs are going to potentially be gone. So that means, hey, maybe we don't need necessarily someone anymore that's going to write the article, which sucks. But the most amazing writers are going to be the ones to now become the editors and and to do all of that and to launch these platforms. So there's a space for it. And I know I kind of went off a little left field there into that, but it goes back to what you're talking about of just integrity.
Yeah, and I think, as it pertains to kind of the tools that are coming, right? To your point, you're still the human pulling the levers and putting in the inputs and whatever, even if it is me like using like a hey gen to create my own twin, which goodness knows these days maybe I should do that. I think it would help kind of stretch me. And I think about that often of like, God, I wish I could clone myself. I wish I could be multiples. And yeah, you can, but it's still you programming that. It's
Hmm.
still you and your brain and your strategies in your mind in terms of being the one to actually input that stuff. And so yeah, and obviously as I'm putting things into those tools, I I carry myself with like just the morality and the ethics that I need, and I'm trying to always think through that when I'm using it. And look, not everybody's going to do that, and that's fine. But I think it doesn't mean that you can't. You know, ultimately, like it's your choice whether you decide to do that or not. And I think, I don't know. I don't know a time when I wasn't trying to do that. I mean, even early days when I was here in LA, like I had two people like that like opened a door, that opened another door, that opened another door, that like I just like all these doors kept like opening to finally find my door.
Hmm.
Right. And I think about that a lot because if it wasn't for that, if it was two people just opening a door that connected to all these other doors that ultimately landed like my first job, I would have like gone back to like upstate New York doing goodness knows what. And nowadays maybe that would have been better because there's a lot happening in upstate New York as it pertains to digital. Like there's a lot of great work happening there, American High and other things that I'm like very impressed by. They rented out like the old middle school and like converted it to production studios, and like I love their story, and that's where I literally where I grew up.
Wow.
But ultimately, the reality is back then, like I needed to be here in Southern California to kind of make my way. And so I will always remember the people that helped me, like always. And like I'm forever grateful for that. And still like there's still today people that have opened a lot of doors for me. And like without those doors, some of the people that you talked about in my bio, like I never would have worked with them.
Hmm.
Right. It's all about ultimately like the connections you make along the way. And so I just want to give that back because that was given to me.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that you and I have in common that we bonded on early on. And you had joked at one point, you're like, Lisa, you're like Kevin Bacon. Like, you know everybody, right? I'm like, I kind of do. But when like I go on and I look at, okay, who do I know at this company or I want to pitch them something like, oh, Leslie's a mutual connection. I'm like, we both have relationships. And that is, it all comes down to what we're talking about today is we've maintained relationships, not out of greed or what can that person do for me one day or desperation, because like desperation cancels manifestation. It actually repels the energy when like you cling on to people for that. But when you're just a good human being and you're I guess a, an attentive enough friend nowadays, right? I think last time you and I got together, we realized we hadn't seen each other, like physically been in the same room together in years, and was like, wait, what? Because I feel like I see you more than most people I know, you
Right.
know? And I'm so glad we're doing this today because I've certainly been missing you. And I'm like, man, we need our monthly you and me hang.
Agreed.
Been missing
Agreed.
that. Oh my gosh. But like just be a good human, And so many people are afraid to ask for support, ask for help, ask for connections. And Andre Quinn likes to say, when people say, well, I don't want them to think I want something from them, it's like, but you do. You do want something from them. So just, now I'm not paraphrasing for her anymore. In my own words, don't be an asshole.
Hmm.
And it's okay
Hmm.
to ask. If you've been a kind, good person, if you've been a helpful human being, if you've been someone of integrity, no one's going to care if you're asking them. Like, how many times, Leslie, have I reached out to you and been like, yeah, I'm in between gigs. Like, who do you know that needs a producer? Or like, whatever's going,
Yeah.
and you're like, yeah, let me see who I know or what's going on. And you've reached out to me and say, hey, do you know talent for this? Or do you know someone who's doing this? It's like, yeah. Right. When we have people that are just kind of this continuous Mobius of energy of goodness in our lives and connection, that's how the world works.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, and I think, staying connected to those people that you just genuinely like. I mean, there's even, when I started my career, I was in film and TV. And like, I mean, now the woman that she is now president of like the Film Academy, right? Who's like produced all these incredible movies, like A Star is Born, like her office when she was started, she just moved from London. She just did her first movie, which was Half Nelson. Like I've intentionally like, stayed abreast of her and occasionally will reach out just because like she was awesome. Like she was just like somebody that I was like, you're amazing. You're going to do incredible things in your life. Like, how can I help? And how I helped was like when Half Nelson opened, I took my lunch break and I went to see it. It was in this janky theater in the middle of like WeHo, like borderline Hollywood. And I was like, and it was like empty. It's like me and my colleague went for a lunch break, so it's like, I'm going to support this. Like, why wouldn't I? So, yeah. And I think those people that are assholes, like you let them go. And look, I think both you and I have run up against a lot of them in our careers, unfortunately, but I think maybe not unfortunately, because, I've learned so much from the people that treated me horribly and treated other people horribly and recognize what I will never do to somebody, like ever. Because it's
Mhm.
just, you can't, and like they'll cut you down and they'll gaslight you and they'll do it. And it's like, and realizing kind of now that I'm much older that like people did that to them and they thought that was okay to do. Not to excuse it, right? Because I never want to excuse that behavior, but I kind of have come to a realization of like, bummer. And I would also add, unfortunately, many of them had their own demise, right? Have
Mhm.
kind of, and so seeing that too, when it comes back to like, again, you give what you get. When you're giving that energy, it comes back to you. And they're not in the industry or something bad has happened to them. And again, never would want that. Like, never want something to come, like, never want them to like face harm in any way or like, have a terminal brain injury of some kind. But like, those are things that have actually happened. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I feel bad, but at the same time, I'm like, you kind of reaped what you sowed ultimately. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't want to be that. I just never felt like I wanted to be that person. So make the choices to be that person. It's
There it is.
kind of coming full circle.
That's leadership right there.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, you believe in karma. And if anyone has ever studied Louise Hay's work, she has an amazing book called You Can Heal Your Life. And if anything is going on with you, down to every just about every single anything from headaches to back pain, something going on with your liver, jaundice, foot pain, it's in there. There's an index that tells you what is the chronic root of this emotionally. And these angry people, I mean, I've seen so many people, and even going in my own cancer journey in my 20s, like, why did I get sick? Like, I was so nice to everybody. I was a people pleaser. I was a fawner. I was like someone who always put myself last, right?
Mm.
So many kind people get sick, and it's not because they're kind. It's because they deal with abuse. They don't speak their truth. They hold it all together to protect everyone else. And then you see these dick bags living to 105 because they're just exploding and they don't care what happens, right? But then there's that in between of like that person who just is toxic, and there's no sense of humor about it.
See, I think you bring up a really good reminder of taking care of yourself. Like
Mm-hmm.
I always remind people of that too, right? Which I think is a full circle moment of kind of, making sure that if somebody wants to go do something else, they should go do that. Like protect yourself. Like nobody's loyal to you. You're loyal to yourself. Like that's just the reality. And I think even from a health perspective, I think you and I are similar, and like we fall into these traps of like, you get so wrapped up and you're like, oh my God, I forgot to eat, or oh my God, I forgot this, or oh, I didn't get a good night's sleep, or whatever. And just there's this constant need to like remind yourself. It was around this. It's not lost on me when certain things have happened in my life from a health perspective, right? Like last year, I lost my dad, right? And just kind of what happened there from a health position, because I was not taking care of myself like at all. And like, how that kind of has impacted me like now, right? Or, I remember when we worked at that company together after that. And then when I was working at Endemol, like developing, Hashimoto's and like thyroid issues and like this whole area, like being impacted because again, like not being able to speak up or speak my truth. Right. And again, like take that for what it's worth, whether that's legit or not. Even, before my daughter was born, during my pregnancy, I struggled. And it was really one of the most stressful times in my career. She was born early. I had preeclampsia, like just all these things that came from that experience, and kind of held on to that for a good, probably almost a year after, because I had a really toxic, horrible human as a boss,
Yeah.
and it was awful experience. And so, I look at all of those things too, and just the gentle reminder of like, you actually need to come first. And, as a mom, as a wife, as a person that runs a business that also, helps sometimes employ other humans, if I'm not where I need to be, I'm not good for anybody else. And it is hard because I do give a lot of myself. And I think those people that do that have to I mean, I don't know. For me, I have to consistently remind myself, I need to take precedence. I need to do this for me. I need to take the day off and just like go get a matcha and like chill. And like, that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, this is a pretty woo-woo business show, so we're into all that stuff,
Good.
and I know you are too. So if this is a reminder for anyone watching or listening to just slow down, you matter. And it goes beyond like the self-care stuff we hear and like put your safety mask on before helping others. Like, yes, and actually put it on. Like actually like realize why it matters that you matter. You matter. You matter so much. And people disassociate with that because they feel like such a cog in the wheel at these giant companies or even small companies with like
Yeah.
shitty bosses, right?
Yeah, totally. Weirdly, I end up being like ahead of the curve on things a lot. And so lately there's been a lot of people coming to me being like, okay, like how do I start a business and how do I do this? And you make it look so easy. And I'm like, well, the reality is I started a business literally 20 years ago now. It was November of 2005 that I opened my consulting business, which wasn't even like, I wasn't even that. It was just, trying to like save some cash and like, do things a more proper way. Because I was production managing for a particular client. The client said to me, you really need to like open like an LLC, convert it to an S Corp here. And I was just like, oh, and just, he kind of like taught me the ropes in terms of how, because then it was just not them. There were other people coming to me wanting me to like production manage for them in the freelance way. And I was just kind of like, okay. And it's what really sparked for me. And so I always joke now that like even 20 years later, I kind of go in house and then I bounce out. Go in house, I bounce out. I kind of like every time I go in house, I level up for like 1 to 3 years. And then like I'm back to my consultancy in like a new, fresh way. Right.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. But I think we're in this kind of time and space with just things being so volatile and a lot of big corporations trying to get lean. People are like, now what do I do? I don't want to just bounce to another company. I want to work for myself. And how do I do that? And I think it's, getting people that you can trust to help you along the way, ultimately, people that have done it for a while. And like, I always say, look, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant. Go get them. They're really good people. They need help. Like, if you need help, go find those people because, I cannot provide that for you. And I do not want to take that responsibility on. But it's been so interesting lately to hear so many people kind of come to me asking me like just some basic questions like, oh, I'm interested in like opening an LLC. Should I? I'm like, I don't know. Should you? Like, here's my one lane of experience lens on that. But I do think we're moving into this really interesting time where more and more people will be working for themselves, working with others, but like, opening up these kind of shops or shingles to kind of do work. And so I think even today, right now, you're not beholden to a boss, but you're beholden to a client, you're beholden to your scope of work, so you still need to kind of find ways to protect yourself, both obviously from a legal standpoint and a contractual standpoint, right? Get paid, like make sure there's like stipulations in those contracts so that you're getting paid on time. If you're not getting paid on time, then like you'll get incremental bumps. Like again, get a good lawyer to go after somebody if they're not going to pay you, like all of those things. But also, you have to also take care of your own mental space and your mental load and your physical well-being. Because once you work for yourself, there is no, you have to bake in your own paid holidays. You don't get paid necessarily. You could, I mean, if you're smart about how you're working, you could get paid while you're taking your time off, and you should, but you don't want to get into the cycle of like, I have to work every day all the time and I can't actually take a break. I can't actually prioritize my health or whatever. And I think, building those guardrails in are so critical, especially for, so many more people moving into the direction of wanting to work for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's so many pieces that we just weren't taught, especially if we went any sort of traditional route of education, which was why there's mentors like you and consultants and shows like this to help people with. And I always think about people don't learn money or the energy of money or how to money at all, you know? And I
Yeah.
remember when I got together with my husband and I was like, so I've got a little bit of debt. Do you have any debt? Like, how do we do this? And we're like, I don't know. Like, we don't know. And I remember asking his mom, like my future mother-in-law, and she's like, well, when we were in church, they taught us how you write a check and that you pay off your credit card every month and da, da, da. And I'm like, but what if you can't? Right. But what if also you're a big dreamer? Like so many people we know and people that listen to this show and like myself, right? You're a big dreamer. And I have gotten myself into a big debt cycle 3 times in my life
Yeah.
because I believe in my dreams and
Right.
I get burned out and then I want to take time off. And then if there's not savings, then we're leveraging debt. Right. And it's like, it's now I'm at a place where I think credit cards are evil, which I don't say about most things in this world or put any energy into even believing in good and evil. But I'm like, oh my God, it's such a fucking racket, right? It's like now I can kind of see the forest for the trees on it after my last third debt cycle. And I was like, oh man, I'm never doing this again. I'm never getting into this cycle again. But we don't want to always have to learn from our own pain. We can learn from other people's pain. And what you said about putting like money away to take some time off and you do that when you're your own boss. Like Leslie, that is critical advice. And I know it's just like something casual that you just said as you were talking, but that is critical because if you're using a system like Profit First or you have yourself on a salary or anything like that, that is the night and day difference that will make or break you as an entrepreneur, that you have something put aside, not just for dry season, but for you just
Yeah.
wanting to rest.
Yeah.
Oh,
100%. I think especially like coming out of my last in-house thing. I mean, look, it was crazy, but it was also like I was very grateful for it because it's, I had the time off and I could take it. And my boss at the time was like very, very gracious about what was going on with my dad. I was able to leverage that time. And then coming back into this year where I was coming back to my consultancy, I was like, oh, no, no. Like, I need to buffer this. I need to really think about what can I pay myself realistically, because I do, pay myself out biweekly, right? I pay my own myself. So like I had to really think about, okay, what do I actually need to make in order to do that? And then have buffer. And right, when I'm working with clients, being really transparent, right? Like I'm, in the midst of like closing a project for like the next 3 months. And within the agreement, I'm like, I am not available these dates, but I'm still getting paid.
Mhm.
Like I can still do that and get paid. Because if it's like basically, a 3 month contract and essentially it's a situation where, it's X amount of money, I just basically incorporate that into the 2 week period.
Mhm.
Right. So I'm still getting kind of paid out, monthly or every 15 days or whatever, like the net payment we determine to be. And then also just as things transition, right, getting ahead of that and being aware of, okay, like this project's winding down. I have this much coming in. This next project doesn't start up till this, like making sure there's some buffer there, right? Like, so, I mean, it is a little bit of a puzzle sometimes to really consider that. And to your point, yeah, sometimes there's dry times. I mean, I've been fortunate maybe not to have as many as I thought I was going to be coming out of stuff, but definitely like I think anybody that is in their business, right, is not only working on the business that they currently have, but you're hustling for the next thing, the next thing. And that's a really challenging balance because you want to ensure that you're, delivering what you need to for the client. But then there's always this like, thing in the back of your head. It's like, when's the next thing? When's the next thing? But also not just taking the anything, right? Is it the right thing? Does that make sense? Like, are you getting underpaid for this thing? You really, and like balancing, does that make sense for you to maybe take a cut or like a haircut on it financially? Because maybe there's an upside, maybe there's another incentive, maybe they're going to pay you on the back end, maybe it's the relationship, right? I certainly have done that. It's only been a couple of instances where I was like, okay, I'm going to undercut myself because this relationship is so critical to me and it's going to open so many more doors, right? That I like did that. And I don't like those times. I actually don't regret that for me, but you might for you, right? So it's all of these things like, and I think people just want to know, like, should I open an, again, LLC or a S Corp or whatever? Do I even need to do that? I'm like, but there's so much more that I want people to really think about in terms of like their agreements, how they're getting paid, their payment terms. Like, don't do net 30 or 60. That's insane. Try and do a net 15, push it as much as you can. Like, all of these things, but also like, is it the right thing? Does this make sense for you long term? Are you going to get value out of it? How are you going to like learn and grow from it? Like, it's all of these other things too that like, yeah, nobody teaches you. You have to kind of experience it for yourself in order to kind of come to the conclusion of like, oh man, that was stupid, or oh crap, I should have done that, or and even still, it's not like I've always got it right either. I've taken on things where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and not in a bad way. Like this happened in 2022. I was in like a 6 month contract, and at month two, I was like, this is not a fit. I was
Mhm.
just like, I'm not able to do like, and what they needed, they thought they needed one thing. And I realized it was like, oh, no, no, you need this thing over here. Like, I can't do that. Like, we're pulling the plug. And they were so grateful for it. But I was like, I'm not going to continue trying to do something that I can't do for you. You're
Mhm.
much better off like doing it this way in a more affordable way than paying my hourly to do this thing. Like, what? No, no, no. And like, and forged a really positive relationship that I can still kind of, connect to and whatever. I mean, I'll say who it was. It was Shopmy. And this was 2022 and they were just starting out and they were really looking to, grow their user base. And like, I only had so many relationships and everybody was like, I don't want to bounce to Shopmy because I'm with LTK. And, and the volume of scale that they actually needed was not what I realized going into the situation. And I was like, there are better tools and better mechanisms than having me as one person being like, dear blah blah blah, come
Yeah.
join this platform, right? And yeah, and so I was like, I can't do this for you. Like, I love your platform. I think it's brilliant. I still think it's brilliant. I still talked about them with every creator. I'm like, if you need affiliate, go to ShopMy. Here's how to do it, right? And that was kind of it, and they wanted to hire me full time. And I was like, no, let's test it first. And, look, ultimately, hopefully, they don't regret the fact that, it was only 2 months and I wound it, but I don't think so because we still have a good relationship. I can still talk to like their COO. And again, I still talk up their platform, but in that case, I'm like, this is wrong. This is not, this is not, I'm going to bleed your money and it doesn't make sense for you.
Mm-mm. And to your point, when we are doing something that is not in our zone of genius, that might not even be in our zone of excellence, even if you were hired for your zone of excellence or genius, and then they're giving you all these other things to do, not that this is what they did, but like they want you to do 5 people's jobs, or they're not, onboarding different services that they need that could help us accomplish more than one thing, right? When we're in our zone of competence or incompetence, and I talk about this on episode 1 of this
Mm-hmm.
show, and it's all in Gay Hendrix's book, The Big Leap. And we talk about it a little bit when he was on the show recently.
Amazing.
Oh my God, Leslie.
When you announced that, I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing get ever. Everybody needs to listen to this episode like now. Even now on this episode, I will tell you, go jump from this episode and listen to that one. Please.
100%, 100%. Like he was my number one get when I was like, I'm going to start a podcast, and someone's like, who do you want? Who's your, I was in a podcast class. Who do you want to have on your show? What kind of, it wasn't even who specifically, because most people don't think like that, even though we do. It was like, what kind of person do you? I'm like, Gay Hendrix. That's what I want. Right. Just like, I love his message. I love what he teaches. I love him and his wife. I love that everything comes back to relationships. It was so funny. I interviewed a woman to be on my podcast, and she came on the show. And when she came on the show, after we had stopped recording, I think I had just recorded with Gay like the week before. So this was kind of recent. And I was saying something about relationships. I go, do you know who Gay Hendrix is? And she goes, I didn't, but knowing I was coming on your show, I had to read his book because I thought you were going to ask me about him on the air because you talk about him in every single episode. And I was like, do I?
I
Like,
mean, but as
yeah.
you should, because it's so powerful and so true. And when you actually caught me onto him too and read his book, and I was just like, yeah, man, like this totally makes sense. And you're right. It's like, where are you working from?
Mhm.
Right. And again, that can be tough because people need a job and people need to work, and again, I want to say, especially now, and I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, in terms of where we are in a climate and a society. I mean, like, I hope, it gets to a situation where we're all in like universal income and, all that stuff. Like, that's my hope for the world, especially in this country. But I think there are some times where you have to balance. I'm going to do it because I need the pay. And like, I respect that. So I also want to be careful, right, from my perspective, right, and how I frame things, because ultimately, yes, you want to come at it from your zone of genius. I think there are times in your life where you're like, I need to get out of debt, or I need X to happen. I need to take care of my family. I need, whatever. And so in those situations, you can think about your pros and cons of if it makes sense for you. From my perspective, it's a challenging balance, but sometimes, yeah, sometimes just take the check. Like, that's okay too.
Mhm.
Right. Like, this happened recently where, I did a scope of work and it just got narrowed, and I thought it was going to be way more comprehensive, but they were like, no, we'll narrow it down, but we'll still pay you. Am I going to say no? And be like, no, don't give me the check. I had these hopes and dreams that I would have more FaceTime with the CMO or, whatever. And I'm like, cool. And the whole time I was like, you don't need me to do X, Y. No, it's cool. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
good problem to have, kind of,
Yeah.
and again, you choose. It's your choice. I think sometimes when people are intentionally undercutting you or intentionally not giving you your value in terms of your hourly, your retainer, or whatever that is, be wary of that. right? Because those are the people that are going to try and extract more from you than less, right? If they're like, oh, I'm going to pay you, making it up, like $5,000, and it's going to be this. Actually, it needs to be this. Actually, it needs to be this. Actually, right? And so it's like you got to make sure that like the guardrails are set so that you are not taken advantage of. And if somebody's like, well, actually, I would charge $7,000, and they're like, no, we only have four, or we only have 3,000 to this whole project. Be wary of those situations because,
Mhm.
again, more oftentimes than not, I have found that those are the people that are going to be like more, 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 right?
Mhm.
Because they haven't valued what your worth is to begin with. So they're going to constantly give you more or make you take more on and not realize that, okay, your value is already this and you've already shrunk it to this. So I think it's just being mindful of those things and getting really clear on your scope. And it's like, if the scope creeps, don't let it. And if you want it to creep, they should pay you more for it. Right. It's just those kinds of things, I think, being really mindful of, especially as your own boss.
And have those conversations like early and right away as they happen, as those things come up, because
Yeah.
we teach people how to treat us. And so they may not intentionally realize they're pushing a boundary, but as soon as you can bring it up, then you're going to prevent resentment. And so what's happening in that scenario that you just described is someone is taking advantage of, you said, okay, I was going to do amount this amount of work for this amount of money. It's like, actually, I want you to do this amount of work.
Right.
And you don't say anything because you want to, put on a good face. You want them to hire you again. You need the money. You don't want the contract to get canceled. And it's like over and over, you're just devaluing yourself. They're taking advantage of you. And then in the back of your head, you're like, fuck you. Right. And so this person that you want their respect so much, you are now starting to disrespect them, which was not your intention. And it's like, wait a minute, this could have all been healed if you had said no, or okay, how about this? I'll give you an example. Just recently, I took on a new client and I'm essentially her spokesperson for her brand. And she's taking down all her other content and she's sending me scripts and things, and I'm reading and even using my own knowledge of being a business coach for her business and sending her content. And when she had posted the opportunity, which I saw on LinkedIn, I was like, this could be kind of cool. It's like everything that I do, it's like performing and it's coaching and it's video production. And I love taking on those little projects. And I love changing things up. And the role was paying less than I wanted it to pay, but she met me not only at the top of her budget, but she actually went above it when she saw who I was and what I could bring to the table. But I even had said to her, hey, there's still like about a $40 an hour gap here in what I do and what I do for other companies. And she said, okay, well, why don't, she didn't know who I was or what I could produce at that point. She goes, well, I want to bring you on. So let's revisit this in 90 days. Right. So at the time that we're recording this, I've been with her exactly a month. And yesterday she sent me a message and she's like, hey, can you just do a video, maybe 15 to 30 minutes, and just talk about this or this, about what happens when this or this happens when you're, but I'm not going to give the specifics. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then I sat with it for a second and I was like, you know what? This actually falls more under who I am as a coach
Mm,
and less as a content creator. And I need to let her know that I'm noticing that. And I had said, yes, I would do the video, but then these feelings came up. Right. And so I just sent her a voice note and I said, hey, I said yes. So I'm going to do it. And I want you to know that this is what came up around it. So I would like to move that 90-day conversation up to 60 days. And I think at this point, you've seen that I've come in under budget and I've over delivered. And she's like, absolutely, we can have this conversation soon. Like way sooner. I'm like, cool. And so now I don't have any resentment about it. Otherwise, I was going to
right.
do the video and be a little resenting. So it's
Sure.
just that, right? It's just clear communication.
100%. That's always what it should be. And just being as transparent as you can be with the circumstances that you're in, like always. The same thing, like this happened, with somebody I was going to partner with, right? I've got something else percolating. I was like, look, I've got this thing percolating. I'm going to know in a couple weeks. You're going down the line to give me this contract. Do you want to hold? Because if this other thing happens, that's null and void. And I don't want to spend resources from a legal standpoint where you're going to crack like an agreement. And then I'm like, okay, I can't do this because I'm going down this different path. And I think
Yep.
she was so grateful for just the honesty. And I was like, I'm not going to go into a situation like just from even from the jump where there hasn't been this layer of openness. And if it doesn't happen, fine, then we can continue down the path. But I think it's just really critical, whatever those things are, that if you're not honest, you're not being honest with yourself,
Yep.
right? Which is a problem. But if you're not being honest and open with that client, like I don't think that's a sustainable way to go. And that's not a way to, build and maintain a relationship.
100%. What I love about this conversation is it's truly turned into like entrepreneurship 101. And I think we needed that on this show. And especially coming from someone at the level that you're at and being able to look at everything, like really holistically and be like, hey, before you decide you're going to go this route or quit your job or, be this person, like check yourself, check yourself and look. And I love you had started with the why, right? Get real honest with yourself about your why. Why are you doing this? And, there's that Japanese term ikigai, which is connected to our purpose, which is something I love teaching and talking about too. And we're in this creator world, and it's the creator economy. And it really is like this, this like now kids they want to do when they grow up, right? And like we could have never imagined this when you and I were watching Sesame Street. Hopefully God not rest its soul that it doesn't go away
It
forever.
won't. It'll be okay. They're going to go to Netflix, so they'll be okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay, great. So yeah, we would have never imagined like, oh, we could be on a computer as a famous person. And, you work with a lot of creators and for people and I work with a lot of coaches and healers and speakers and authors. And we're told over and over and over, you have to make content, you have to make content, you have to make content. Right. So it's like one thing to, okay, here's your own zone of genius, right? Whether you're an amazing coach or healer, author, speaker, whatever, creative, actor, dancer, writer. And you have to know the business side of things, right? Like you said, get an accountant, get an attorney, hire a mentor, hire a coach, right? And then also now you've got to be like a video producer, right? And like know how to do this and and like a photographer, right? Know how to do this, know how to do this. And like on one hand, I think it's good for us. It stretches our brains. But on the other hand, some super geniuses are just meant to focus on just their craft. And I wish for everybody to have that blessing and just focus on your craft and build enough success to build a team around you so you can just focus on your craft. That's the dream. But can we talk a little bit about the importance of content and like what should somebody do when it comes to, okay, I'm launching, or maybe I've had some success on my podcast or on a YouTube or on TikTok or whatever. And it's like, at what level are we trying to maintain consistency versus like, we need to make it another full-time job?
Oof, that's a great question. I mean, look, it's all dependent on what you want and what your goals are. I always find creators, if let's take something that's achieved a certain level of success, right?
Mhm.
Because those are the people that I'm usually working with,
So what
right?
does
They're
that mean
bringing,
now? What's a certain
so,
level of success?
so they have already achieved at least $1 million in revenue a year,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
Typically, even
Sure.
at like the 500,000 mark, like bringing me in, I don't know if that makes sense necessarily. I've worked with some creators recently where they're like, I just need a bunch of brand deals. And I'm like, okay, cool. We'll try it for 3 months. I will tap all my relationships, but like, I don't know if I can actually be that person. And
That's
along the
right.
way, I'm giving them guidance of like, hey, you're already doing this, right? You're already compiling all your content. You can actually spin up a YouTube channel and make more because you already started that. You already have 35,000 subscribers and really great watch time. You just need more content. And if you start to move in that direction, you'll see that your AdSense will start to come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You will get a check, right? Versus doing, I'm making it up, like this $200 deal, right? You're going to make that really fast if you just compile your resources better, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I think,
I want to jump in real quick for people
yeah,
who haven't made $1 million a year yet. first of all, go back and listen to everything we've talked about so far to help get you to that point, because it really is a lot about mindset and how you treat yourself and what you stand for and what you stand against and being a good person in this industry. That's going to get you so much further than anyone else who has a famous dad or their YouTube blew up because some TikTok singer made them famous, right? So and you hear what Leslie just said. She just said $1 million a year, but like maybe their YouTube has 35,000 subscribers, you know, and like there's a lot of podcasters and YouTubers that have 10, 20, 30, 50,000 subscribers that are not making money yet. Okay. So don't think you're out of the running. Okay. Leslie, continue.
So yeah. So I mean, that's for me, right? But
Yeah.
like,
To work
I'm
with
not
you, but in
to work,
general.
but I'm saying in general, like going back to like the more of the general reality of things, you know, you have to know what you need, right? What do you need to survive, right? Like if you're good with, I'm making it up. You want to make 75,000 a year. That is enough for you to live a great life. And now you're bringing in $125,000. Are you willing to reinvest that extra capital into an additional resource? Maybe you hate editing. It's like your bane of your existence. Can you hire a part-time editor, right, to do that? Maybe you're like, you know what? I really do need to have an operator because my finances are just shit and I don't know if I'm coming or going and I don't know if I'm paying taxes right. I need an accountant or I need somebody operationally to just clean me up and make sure everything's in the right places so that I can send that stuff out, right? You know, it's tricky, right? Because you know for yourself what you need. I think where I struggle sometimes is somebody's like, you know, I make $100,000 a year and I need three more people. Okay, but if you're happy making that, is there a way like you can offset something small, right? So I hate admin, I hate doing emails. Like you can automate that now with ChatGPT, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to do that right now, but like you could do that. Like I've
Yeah.
learned. I don't know if I
Just
even
ask
do that
chat.
the right way, but
Ask
I
chat
mean,
how to do it.
but there are ways to do that. There are
Yeah.
mechanisms to if you're just trying to crank out a bunch of emails to do that efficiently for yourself, right? So you might not even need like a virtual assistant to do that. You might be able to like use tools to make that happen for yourself. You know, yeah, do you have the time to learn the tool? I'm like, well, if you don't want to hire somebody and you still want to do it yourself, you're going to have to make the time to do that, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it is really case by case in terms of what somebody is looking to do. You know, creators have come to me and like, hey, I want to build a brand. Help me do that. I'm like, well, what product do you want? And do you need me to help you source it? Do you need me to help you do this? And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, they're just doing it all themselves. And I'm like, cool, then you don't need me to get you the brand deal because that is not what I'm good at. I don't have the Rolodex of relationships to be like, hey, Unilever, hey, Dove, hey, blah. Like, I can to a point, but like, that's not my zone of genius. That's
That's
not
right.
where I'm at. That's not
But
what
your
I can do
passion.
or
Yeah.
my passion. You know, and I
Yeah.
will do that for a bit to kind of maybe sometimes get in the door or develop a relationship or whatever. But like, I'm very transparent of like, I will do my best. I will see what I can do. I think you need to go in this direction because that's where I'm always at. I'm always about like, how can I help grow your business? What do you need that I can offer to help you think strategically about where are the holes and where can you plug them and how to grow you? Right.
Mhm.
So it's always going to come back to like, where are you? What do you want? And what is achievable based on where you are now? Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Think ahead. Think about where things are going to be. I do think it's important to understand where you are at present day, right? And is that enough? I mean, I think the other piece that's happening with this whole I hate the term creator economy and it's used all the time. And like everybody thinks that you're supposed to be the next Darmon, Mr. Beast, whatever. And it's like you can just be, you know, you can be somebody who crochets hats and sells them on Etsy. That's cool.
Yep.
And you sold like 15 of those hats, and that's what you want to do. You
Mhm.
can be the mom living in Ohio that's like selling, you know, stuff off TikTok and making $4,000 in commission, and you have 500 followers.
Mhm.
Great. That
Mhm.
is a sweet gig. You keep doing you, right? Like, I think there's this like mindset of you have to, in order to be successful, you need the million subscribers, $1 million a year. No, I'm saying that's the level, that's my baseline typically of like, and those are all learnings too, because that used to not be the case. Like, yeah, you're only making whatever. Sure, I'll help you, but I can't because there's no additional reserve left, right? For you
Yeah.
to actually, you're still in like this mode of like hamster wheel churn of content, or like, I just want brand deals. That's not interesting to me. It's just not. It will be interesting for somebody else. And maybe I can help you find that person. But for
Yeah.
me, like, that's just not what I want to be doing. And again, is it even what you want as a creative? Because you use that term, it's so broad, it can mean
It is.
so many different things, right? Like, for me, you'll never see me put together some beautiful deck that I'm putting out on LinkedIn. Like, that is like bane of my existence. I don't make things pretty. Like, I just don't. I can work with somebody to make it pretty, but I don't make it pretty. That's not my thing. Right. And
Mhm.
I'm not in a position currently where I'm gonna learn Adobe, or I'm gonna learn Canva, or like, I don't care. I don't have
Mhm.
time for that. And nor do I want that. That's not interesting to me. So I think the other piece to that as a creator is, again, like, what are the things that you love, that light you up, that you want to do? And the goal should be, when can I then offload this once I achieve X? When I achieve X, I'm going to offload this piece. I'm going to get somebody else to do that so that I can do more of the things that I love to do. That's
Mhm.
really, I think, where it comes down to.
Yeah, no, and that's totally fair, and to be able to work with someone who has a budget like you talked about, then you can truly help them scale because they can invest in those other systems and resources and people to help them. Because I know you, Leslie, like you're not just here to make someone famous or to make somebody rich. You create movements. You work with people who are making an impact, who are making change in this world, who are creating new, innovative, cool, interesting things. You're not here to do the next copy of something else. Like you help people innovate and it's so fun and you're so creative. So that's your zone of genius, babe, right there, you know?
Yeah. And it's
Mhm.
funny because, like, I have to constantly remind myself of that too. Right. Because, like, it's so easy to move into something like from an operational standpoint, but there's a lot of creativity in that too, by the way. Right.
Mhm.
Like, how
Yeah.
to creatively think about the way that you're doing a certain process, or how you're kind of thinking about the way that you're budgeting something. Not that I'm not going to be creatively budgeting
Yeah.
anytime soon,
I'm like, you're
but
such a Virgo right now.
in terms of just like, I am, just in terms of, thinking about your bottom line, your margins, right? Like, and I'm very competitive. I'm very competitive. And so I'm very much like, how do I almost gamify these things,
Nice.
in a way to like make you more? I'm going to make you more. This time I'm going to do it. And again, not in a way that I'm going to like, cut your staff in half or whatever, but I'm going to try and find what are the efficiencies that you need in order to make more money, in order for you to take on more, in order for somebody else to take on something that you don't want to do, right? So I do have a very competitive spirit, which has served me, right, when it comes to the operational piece of it, which I love doing. And it is that split between creative and not, and I need to be in that balance. Otherwise, if I lean sometimes too hard in one direction, I will get bored. And ultimately for me, I like to build stuff. Like,
Mhm.
if I'm kind of brought into like build the thing and then I'm bounce, usually what happens is I'll build the thing and then somebody will lay me off, which is fine. Usually I don't make that choice for myself, but I've learned that like the universe is actually doing that intentionally, because they're literally like, you built the thing, you're going to go over here to the next thing. Go do
Mhm.
that. You served your time. The purpose is done. Move on now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and that part too, right? Like knowing that when your time is done, whether it was your initiation or not, to really trust that. And I remember when I was laid off at Fawn, and it was, unfortunately done by someone who, not Michelle, she's amazing, and someone else who got in there who didn't last after I left. But he did it in just the shittiest, weirdest way. And I cried and I was surprised I cried because I hated driving to Santa Monica every day, 5 days a week. And I wanted more money and we didn't have it in the budget. And I understood that, and I was like, wow, I cried. And I was like, what is going on here? And I sat down next to you and I always would stay late because it was just so much easier to like eat dinner, get takeout together,
Yeah.
than like drive home in rush
Yeah.
hour, until then you eventually, you met Ibra during that job, and I was married. My husband was very patient. You said to me when I was sitting there crying, you said, you know what, Elysia, when you show up somewhere, you make it better. People are better by being in your presence. You came in here and we created some great stuff. Yeah, sure. And we made some money. And yeah, sure. But like the office is a better place now. Everyone who works together is like closer and knows each other. Like you were telling me, even in this, there may be 8 people who work there. It was like we created our own little community,
Yeah.
and you gave that to me at a time when I was feeling really bad. And I so appreciate that. And I just wanted to echo that and to what you just said about just know when it's your time to go and know what you brought to the table. And so hearing what you bring to the table and you shining that light for me leads so much into just faith and trust and surrender. And like, if it's not your path, it's not your path. And that doesn't mean you quit or give up, right? If you know it's meant to be, sometimes we persevere, we compete with ourselves, but really gracious how you handled
And
that with your life in mind.
yeah, and I mean, I think the other piece of that, dovetailing what I had said too, is, I knew you were going to go and potentially do XYZ thing. And like, this was just a stepping stone to your next thing. Like the learnings you took, you learn what you did want, what you did, certainly what you didn't want in the next thing. And you take that with you on your next journey. Right. And I knew that, like, I knew like this wasn't like the end of the line. You're never going to do digital again. And, being able to kind of make room for the things that are supposed to be the next thing for you. Right. And then I look at kind of like what happened that next year. Like, you wouldn't want to be in for that. I'm telling you, like that was some rough, rough times, and for me too, right? Like there was like, I remember there was like a 6 week gap. They were like, go on hiatus for 6 weeks. Everybody's like, what the heck? And I'd already kind of seen it, right? And because I had saw what happened to you, and I was like, okay, this is not going to be a thing for much longer. And like I already knew that, so I like set myself up for the next, like. So I don't know. I think all of those things are just valuable lessons, stepping stones to where your path is going to lead you next. And I think, again, not to be hokey, even though he was an a-hole and he never should have done it the way that he did it. I do think ultimately for you, it allowed you to go on to the next thing that was then meant for you. And you took those learnings. And again, you went off to kind of work with L'Oreal. I mean, again, like you wouldn't have necessarily had that without the experience that you had doing the makeup show and, the transformation show that you did. And then you kind of on to the next. And I think everybody needs to just be reminded of that. I do it too. There's definitely like fear in that. Like when I was laid off, there was definitely this moment of just fear of like, oh my God, like what's next? Even though I knew it was coming. I saw it happen. I knew it in April that this was going to be the path. I already knew that's what was coming. I saw it. I understood it logically, but the emotional, I mean, I'm still, I'm fairly logical, but there's still the emotional piece of yourself. You're just like, oh my God, now what? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, there's other thing appears. Right? Oh, okay. I'm supposed to do this now. And I'm supposed to do this through January. And I'm okay. And, I don't know. I think it's just trusting that. And that's I think the hardest thing, right? Is just trust that like ultimately these things are going to happen the way they're supposed to happen. And yes, you need to make some effort. It's not like I just was like, boo hoo, I'm just going to sit around and not look at the next thing. Yeah, I busted my ass to like secure that thing, lock in my contract, and away I went. Same with Endemol. Like I knew I was getting laid off in like October and I had until December. So I was lucky, I had a bit of a runway and I locked 3 clients in that started in January and just, all of those kinds of things. So I think don't let fear drive you into the ground. Be afraid for like a day, be sad, be angry for a couple of days, and then try and kind of pivot your way of thinking to know that this is the right time for you to be open to the next thing. and work to achieve that next thing, right? Don't sit on your laurels. Like literally go after the thing that you know is supposed to be next and hit it hard.
There it is. Well, I want to pull a card for you as we wrap up here. Oop, two just flew out. Okay, so we're going to trust you. And for everybody who is listening or watching, this is for you too. Okay, so so good. So the first one that came through, Leslie, is Akasha, based on the Akashic records. See if you can see that.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, it's just this beautiful, it's not even a kingdom. It's just like this other realm of where all of everything that's ever happened to us and everything that will happen to us is already written. And some people don't like that idea, but there's actually so much peace in that concept that your free will is how you choose to think and feel. And in the Robert Scheinfeld episode on this show, he's the guy who wrote Busting Loose from the Money Game. He did 2 episodes this season. And he was like, he's like, how you think and feel is even predetermined, right? He's like, J.K. Rowling's writing the script. You think Harry Potter has a choice in how they feel? And I'm like, like my brain is breaking, right? So in this, in this idea of the Akasha, your guidance is divinely guided. Okay. So you are guided, Leslie. Everything that you are doing, like keep leaning into that. I'm a good person. Here's my boundaries. I'm going to compete and gamify it because it's fun and like, let's make an impact and let's change the world. And like, as you just lean even more and more and more into that joy, continued abundance, incredible opportunities, things that are fun and exciting are going to keep showing up for you. And for everybody who's listening, you too, right? So this guidance is divinely guided. You found this episode today. You got to hear what Leslie and I had to say to you about your journey. And wherever you are on your journey, there was a piece today that applied to you. So go back, listen to it again, and reach out to us and message us and comment on our stuff and connect, because you are not doing this alone. And that's why people like us create what we create. And then the second one that came out is the ever unfolding rose. So dramatic. Cracked open, just like we've been talking about. It says it's happening for you, not to you. Okay. So remember that it's happening for you. And you know how many times I've been in a shitty situation? I'm like, fuck you, universe. Right? Like, oh, it's happening for me. Okay, fine. But Leslie, you were one of the first people in my life who pointed out patterns and to notice the patterns, right? And you had, when I got laid off, you were like, there's like a certain month or two every year that like I always get opportunities. Like, when is yours? And I thought about it and I'm like, it's usually springtime for me, you know? And so I look forward to that. And you know, whenever I've been in a dry season in wintertime, which happened a lot in my every industry I've ever been in, weddings and acting and producing, right? And it's like, spring's going to be great. Like, I know that. And I think back to that, you know? So really just for us, for you, for me, for everyone, trust you will feel better for it. Even if you're raising your middle finger to the sky in the middle of it, like Leslie said, just be pissed, have it, feel your feelings, and then come get your feet dirty again and get to work, you know?
Exactly. Mine's fall, which is like right around, I mean, it's happening now. It's like literally happening right now. I'm like, I feel it.
I love it. So last question, if you could change anything about your path, what would it be or have been?
I mean, I think the biggest thing was putting myself out there more, like sooner,
Yeah.
more
Mhm.
sooner, right? I should have been doing what I'm doing now, like 10 years ago, you know, in terms of, and again, I'm not saying like LinkedIn per se, but something, right? Like using my voice, whatever, because I had a lot to say back then too, just it was different. But, you know, I would have been a huge LinkedIn star at this point. No, I'm kidding. But like you know, I've created stuff for everybody else and I didn't
Mhm.
do it for me. So that's the one thing I wish I had done sooner, is doing more of the creating content for others and myself sooner, right? In terms of like what I have to share out, you know, and just lately I've been just like playing with video and like trying things and using
Yeah.
the script and like, you know, I mean, again, I've produced so much for so many other people that I kind of didn't take the time to just put that energy towards something that just for myself, right? So that's really the biggest thing. Like, I don't, you know, somebody asked me too, like, oh, any jobs that you wish you could have had? Of course. Like, you know, there were offers that were made to me that would have, you know, for better or worse, changed the trajectory of things, and I didn't do them. But like, I don't regret any of it because, again, just like we talked about through this episode, like I really believe that you are where you're supposed to be, and where you're going, is where you're supposed to be going. Right. And it all leads to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's all of those learnings like help in the next thing in the next phase that you're going through. And so, you know, I think that would be the biggest thing. I can't really think of anything else that I would change or want to do differently.
There it is. And if anyone's asking that question for themselves, it's not at all to point to any regret. It's to actually have your current self look back and whisper to your past self and trust that that energy is timeless, and not even from like such a spiritual perspective or a mystical perspective, but if that's what you would have done differently then it's not too late to start doing it now. And that's what you're doing. And that goes back to that content question, right? Of like, how much content should we be creating? Because it's not our main thing we want to be doing. And it's like, but what if you're doing it for yourself? What if you're doing it to share and teach and speak from your heart? And I have so many clients who are like, I hate seeing myself on camera and I don't want to feel like I have to put makeup on. And nobody has to put makeup on. Okay. But you can do videos and like not have your face if you don't want to. You know what
That's
I mean?
right.
Like that's what podcasts were for a long time. And you
That's
can have
right.
text on screen or reels
You
that is
can write. Like I love
right.
writing. Like
Yes.
most of the stuff I'm doing is written because I love to write. And it's not like I don't find it to be like some big hassle or some work. I just, at night before I go to bed, something comes to me, I write it out, I tweak it, I schedule it, I'm done, right? And sometimes I do that in advance, sometimes I do that night before, but it's always something that like just kind of for me comes to me and I'm just kind of like washed in it and I got to put it out there. And it's all written for the most part. I've dabbled in video because it's fun and I'm trying new things, but like lean into if you're great at graphic design, like design like a graphic asset with a quote in it. If you're, what I mean? Like again, like whatever those things are that kind of like light you up, those are the things that you should lean into.
That's right. And if you hate doing it and you don't want to do it, then don't do it.
Don't do it.
Do a thing that you like doing. Like Leslie likes writing. If you like write, oh, I can just write. Yeah, you can just write. You can. There's still an audience for that. People still read, maybe not as much, but your fans will read your stuff. Your fans, your followers, your people who look up to you, they will watch your videos, even if you
Exactly.
feel awkward. They like awkward. It actually makes you relatable. So there it is.
Awesome. Thanks,
All right,
Elysia.
my love. Well, again, your resources are going to be in the podcast description so people can find you, connect with you, learn from you, potentially work with you if you're available. And I so appreciate you coming on, Leslie, and sharing your brilliance with everyone here. I think we've inspired a lot of people today.
I hope so. Thank you. This was so fun. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Let's do it again.
Yay.
Be sure to connect with me at patreon.com/The Brilliance Method. The only way I'll know if you're loving the show is if you leave a comment, 5 stars, and subscribe.